Sorry about the long starting soon screen. It was just with a community tournament, the OBS side of things a little bit more complicated, but yeah, let's go. Big game here. Freddybabes returning.
This is gonna be very exciting.
Just put Freddybabes. Freddybabes versus Ultra,
right.
man. So Alessio, if you guys aren't familiar with, is a former Gwent professional player. He is now a Runeterra professional player. Lovely guy. Someone I do know quite well. And these guys would have definitely played against each other many times in the past, but not for a long time. So really excited to see how it pans out.
I'd hate to interrupt here, but is there a way that you can share your screen with me because I'm stuck in the loading screen?
I
can't get
can
into the game.
do that.
I can see it on
yes.
stream, but it's on a super delay then, I guess.
Yeah, I got you. Just give me a moment so I don't leak anything.
Awesome, thanks.
I've even given you 30 frames per second instead of 15, so you're welcome.
Wow. I hope my computer is lit. Wait.
Is that working? Did I share the right screen?
I see myself.
I must have
and
shared
I
the
hear
wrong
myself.
screen. It's probably not ideal.
Inception. All right.
Okay, let me try that again.
Yay! Thank you so much. Very
Pleasure.
cool.
Okay, so Freddybabes here has got an Onslaught deck going first. He actually messaged me not too long ago saying, Spacey, which is my blue coin deck? So I don't. Freddy's not played this deck ever in his whole life. You might notice there's a Fisher King Cceely.
Yep.
One of my favorite cards, mate. I'm just such a fanboy for the Fisher King.
I noticed there's been a lot of hype around this card in particular. It's really fun to see in action. One second, I have to just take care of this technical stuff because of the loading screen issue, but
Yeah, no worries at all.
you go ahead for a bit.
Yeah,
sorry.
I got you. Yeah, so Freddy starts off with a little half through. It's like a nice little proactive option. There's obviously not a whole bunch of other options he has. So one thing the Fisher King can do in this deck, it's the one I'm the biggest fan of the Fisher King in because you can put Tear of the Seas in hand. If you don't already have it, that's going to accumulate a whole bunch of armor and then be a big removal tool. You can also put a skirmisher or something like that on top of when you play the discard card. Also, like you've got Mask of Ouroboros and Sunset Wanderers, so you can play your Fisher King and then click that card, drawing the card that you need at that moment. Now, for Alessio, he has got a scoia'tel Guerrilla Tactics deck with, it looks like a Madoc, with a Saskia as well with the movement package. So it maybe is going to prove to be a little bit tricky for Freddybabes here to deal with the Saskia, but uses the order on the little half through to put that rain down, making Saskia damaged, as well as making the other card damage. So you got a lot of armor from that play, as well as like threatening maybe to kill the Saskia of random damage. Although I don't believe he has that. Like Coral is not a card he has in his deck. Instead, he's gone for Junod. And I mean, we can take a quick look into the deck lists. If you just look here from Alessio, he's got a Feign Death and a Saskia. Wow, this is a very interesting deck from Alessio. Obviously, very prone to bricking, but it looks like he's done all right and looking for some abuse from this coin. Now, Freddybabes lineup really, it's mainly looking at dealing with Northern Realms, so he's not going to be too worried if he loses this first matchup, but of course, big bonus if you can get it through. How's your technical stuff looking, Cceely?
It's looking a little bit better. We're getting there,
I
and
also
I
need
can
to turn
finally
my,
see everything.
I also need to turn my light on,
Let's
so
go.
we're not doing very well overall. One sec.
It can only get better from here. It'll be an uphill battle, but we got this, and still going to be really fun games. All right, yeah, let's see here.
So I'm guessing this is Maxi. Oh, it's the Fisher King, of course. It's the Fisher King. Let's go.
In action, finally.
And look at the value from the half-through on the rain. He's damaged the Saskia down twice now, so the Sentry got damaged, the Matron, Saskia twice, so the Tear of the Seas is already looking like a heat wave on a stick. Like, well, at least it's going to be by the end of the game.
Yep, finding that round one is always good.
I think Freddy roped out a little bit there, because I imagine he would have wanted to use his leader charge to deal with the Matron, but hasn't been punished for that because of Maddox spawning in the front row, like there was no extra points. Of course, for Freddy, it does look like he's going to be losing on even, so maybe his best bet is just to accept that fact. Try and get as much carryover as possible.
Might be. It is very tough dealing with this Saskia. You don't have any random flurry pings. It'll just pop off. And I'm wondering, though, how Alessio's damage that he has with all the bombs is going to compare, because Freddy will have a good amount of armor on the board.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's nice to have a unitless kind of list and win on even, but what do you do if your damage doesn't really get value? It's going to be interesting to
It's
see.
a really good point. Like in this deck with Freddy, there's like not even a crack on crate. So you're really getting very little value on all your removal. It's only really these blue ships, and look at this blue ship already in the back with 4 armor. So Freddy deciding to use a leader charge, meaning that he's, you know, still planning on getting out of this round. So pretty committal from Freddy to go for that leader charge, which suggests he's believing that he can maybe get away with not losing on even, obviously being able to deal with all the engines that Alessio has played down.
Yep, it's definitely not a bad idea, but this Cat Witcher is looking a little bit threatening. Saskia as well has the cooldown, but Freddy does have points if he does want to catch up. The discard already into a Morkvarg with the Wonder, if you're fine committing that potentially around 1 even, just to win the round, you can do that. So we'll see.
You can combine this primal savagery
hand.
as well with a leader charge to answer.
Yeah.
Freddy instead goes for the Mushy Truffle, which he put on top of the deck with the Fisher King. Is going to get that bonded ability through as well. This is so exciting!
Have suddenly appeared on the board, and Freddy's not looking like he's in trouble anymore. This is not bad.
So Freddy held onto this other leader charge for the moment with the primal savagery, but still an option for him. Of course, this card can be 8 points total, but I do believe he has a Junod in his deck as well as a second primal savagery, so maybe that could prove to be like a slight concern for him if he commits this other leader charge, like how he's going to get that Junod through in the other primal savagery if he needs. So he's being a little bit careful, getting the bonded ability through while the half is still on the board as well. And for Alessio, these bombs, like, while they're playing for decent points, it's not exactly too threatening for Freddy. He's not going to be too concerned. He doesn't quite have a pass. Cat Witcher's going to be jumping to the back row, as well as Saskia, potentially pulling another unit. It will be, with, like, the Matron, the Cat Witcher having been answered, or just one Matron, actually, is the only unit that can be pulled off this Saskia at the moment. Of course, that could also... Freddy will be under the impression there's going to be a Dwarven Mercenary.
Yep.
But that is in the hand for Alessio.
Definitely not bad mind games there. Do you have it? Do you not? You have to kind of count that it is in the deck when you're Freddy, so you have to play accordingly, and Alessio might be even relieved if he gets like a pass from Freddy at some point, and Freddy would end up actually losing on even here. We'll see. Not happening though. Freddy is going for the ship. No leader charge yet though, because the Wanderer is being committed. It is quite committal definitely for Freddy, but he says that if I kind of lose this round, then game is kind of over for me. I don't want to do that, which is fair. It can be really difficult, especially if you're playing a pretty reactive deck yourself, to kind of catch up there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising as well, maybe to see Freddy not commit the Mushy Truffle or something as well. So Alessio being given a little bit of a chance, does 3 leader charges to work with, and there's also 2 1-strength cards on the board here. So if Alessio wanted to just use some leader charges onto other cards, he does have the luxury of doing that.
Yeah.
And does Freddy get the pass?
I just got through
as
on
well?
my end, and the screen is looking so wild. But I can see the cards now. That's
Okay,
good.
that is a positive. So Freddy
Ooh.
should have a pass here. The Cat Witcher is going to be moving to the front row, dealing 2 damage. So he does actually have a pass if he would like to take it.
There is a pass, but then you're potentially stuck with no truffle carryover either, which might not be a great idea. So here does come the primal savagery for a pretty good amount of points,
Oh
definitely
my
here.
goodness.
And pretty soon about to discover that there is nothing coming out from Alessio Saskia anymore either. So Alessio's kind of forced to go for this round at some point, but the commitment from Freddy is definitely pretty big here.
The primal savagery, not only 8 points, but removal as well, just combining it with the ship. You can see why I was like, Freddy's decided to play 2 of these. This is such a great card. It can, of course, be a little bit dodgy. But like again, the main thing Freddy really wants to do is just be beating NR. So if he can get an extra win here, he's going to be feeling really, really confident moving forwards. Alessio, not giving up just yet, of course, has got this Dwarven Mercenary in hand. So Freddy might be thinking there's 7 more points still to come from the Saskia. But we do know that is not the case.
There will be a Cat Witcher, though, now that Primal Savagery did come down and deal with the previous one.
That's
so
true,
that
yeah.
is happening. Still a bit of points, especially that hits the adrenaline now. But yes, no dwarf coming out there after this. For Alessio has to play a solid 7 points from hand. But maybe that is enough, because Freddy is looking like, you know, at some point you don't really want to commit too much anymore. You do have the Terror of the Seas, which is kind of like a finishing thing that you want to hold on to. So if Freddy would end up committing even more here, would maybe not be ideal. So it's looking like potentially it's time for a pass before Alessio can catch up. And Freddy is assuming as well that there might be that 7-point dwarf coming out from Saskia as well.
Will we see the Mushy Truffle come through? Buffing up Morkvarg in particular would be nice.
Yep.
Could also click the little half-through. Decides not to go for that. But I love this decision from Freddy to commit the Mushy Truffle, particularly onto the Morkvarg, just because it's a 1-strength unit. But there's a whole bunch of 4-strength units as well, which does make the Milva pretty easy for Alessio to commit with his leader. As that's just going to clean
There
up
it is.
very smoothly. I guess like a big mind game that's going on with these guys in this is the Gourd situation. They'll both probably be familiar with Gourd. You know, nothing's too different there. Alessio does have a Gourd, I do believe. Should double check that. He does.
Yes.
And Freddy,
yes.
of course, having a lot of tool punishes means last say is going to be pretty important in this one.
That is why this first round is very, very intense. But yeah, Alessio still going for it, still has points. Mercenary comes out from hand now, so Freddy can see that, but the point gap is really intense. It is looking a little bit spooky for Freddy. Either you commit the Terror of the Seas, you take down, for example, the 7-point Mercenary. I don't know how many good targets you're going to have later, and save your Heat Wave if you can get last say for the Gourd that Spessy did mention. Of course, there is a Feign Death as well, but I'm not sure that that will be the Heat Wave target that you desire in this game. We'll see.
Yeah, Freddy has like a whole bunch of tool punishes, so he probably can get away with taking a Heat Wave on Feign Death, but it never trades particularly well with the Commander obviously trading up to the Heat Wave. Here comes Terror of the Seas holding on to the Heat Wave, maybe for that exact reason. Will we also see a leader charge to clean up the Matron? He's probably worked out that there's still a Cat Witcher in the deck. Of course, it is open deckless here. Big decision for Freddy if he decides to go for the leader or not. He's going to want to hold on to this Heat Wave, decides to go for it.
This is it. This is the play that Freddy's hoping to get away with. Last say, deal with Gourd, have a tall punish for that, but a lot has been committed. And Alessio does have access to a leader charge. Milva can come out, Cat Witcher, as well as a bomb, so there's still points, even though it
Cceely,
doesn't look like it.
if he goes for the bomb first,
me.
the Cat Witcher will not come out of the deck. Because
Ooh.
Maddock is a Witcher, but of course these guys are
That's
retired pros. Alessio might not. I mean, maybe he's been practicing. I know he's been on the pro ladder recently. Freddy, not so much. Freddy's down at rank 15. He needs to do the maths. Obviously, he's got 5 points on the Moron.
There's the
Can
Milva.
he get ahead here? Oh, Milva's now on the board, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if he doesn't have that much more movement. Okay, there you go. Scratch that. And here comes the Cat Witcher. No, the Maddock! The Maddock! No. Okay.
Yeah.
So Freddy gets the pass, which is really big, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
My goodness.
Oh, man. Yep, that happens. It's weird because, like, the Maddock art does look like Maddock. I've always, like, kind of in my head thought that Maddock's, like, the monster on the art. Rather than the actual Witcher on it, but it is the Witcher.
And that is an absolute nightmare because this Dryad is only 5 points. Oh, she can deal damage.
It is 7. It is a 7 now.
Okay.
She got changed. Yeah.
Okay. What a roller coaster. I've even got Observer. I'm just not used to it. I can hover it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Observer is certainly, we're being very spoiled having it, access to it right now. Cat Witcher in hand, Milla in hand. Ooh. Alessio does have points still. He has double Harvest and Simless, as well as the Gourd finisher. And he has secured, well, yeah, Feign Death and Simless is definitely a couple of points if you do want to have that last say, which, I mean, I guess you do have last say, actually. Yeah, that's already pretty good. Maybe it's just a pass here.
Yeah, Alessio's done really well to just draw a functional hand, and for Freddy, decides to actually mulligan the Skirm there, a little bit controversial. Maybe just feeling like he wants to take the dry pass, maybe he's feeling like he's got enough juice with Heatwave for the Feign Death, Morkvarg for the Gourd.
Alright, we do see the Feign Death coming down, and the Simlas applying definitely a lot of points on the board. However, what is Simlas going to pull? Is there a double bomb to go for? Not really. There is Bountiful Harvest, but there is no target for the actual carryover. So, but that can be used to proc the Feign Death. Of course, Heatwave came down there as well, so I guess that decided it. And Alessio's free to take a pass. Potentially save those harvests for later.
Yeah, and this is if you just look at this Heatwave onto the Feign Death. This is why we say that Heatwaving Feign Death is not always that efficient. You know, there's not better ways of dealing with it particularly. But in a long round in particular, this commander will play for a lot of points. Now, these harvests are super lackluster here because you've got no hand buff. And there's so many damage cards as well of the elves. Finds a Seer, which, yeah, I mean, this is looking a little rough.
You could go for a Sorceress after that. Might not be too bad. If you can find it, you have to high roll a little bit better these days. That the pool has expanded. All right. Yeah.
The second commander is really solid, though, at least. Could have gone worse, for sure, for Alessio there.
Could have gone worse. That is true.
For Freddy has Fukusha. In the graveyard, there is an 8-point little Harfer as well, which is going to apply a whole bunch of rain. Alternatively, could go for a 2-point Terror of the Seas, or two armored Terror of the Seas. The Scald, of course, looking a little bit sketchy.
Nice Hopter coming down there. Definitely not bad. And Alessio, on the other hand, does have Rock Barrage left. That will get Milva out as well if he does want to go for it. But there is the pass. Definitely not bad. Still holding on to that last save, which is pretty important for Alessio. It was a little bit risky, I think, to play into this round. But it was more of like a, hey, Freddy, do you have Heat Wave? If not, I can apply a lot of pressure in a very short amount of time with that Feign Death. So that was an interesting call, but it could have gone sideways. Could have been Freddy would have secured a last day, but Alessio does keep it and hopefully finds the gourd.
Really love this decision from Freddy. He hits the Skirm with the Scald, and you would expect him just to be discarding the Skirm there. But in fact decides to discard Morkvarg. Alessio has secured last say, and the Skirmisher is basically just 4 extra points that Freddy can have in round 3 if he draws some discard cards. This Junod is looking very dodgy. Also, all eyes to see if Gourd is drawn. There's Gourd.
There it is. There it is. An Aeromancy at one of the bottom cards, I believe, in this one. Yep, the bottom card, because Alessio, I think, has now thinned. Oh, never mind. Yeah, actually, the bottom card. It wasn't an Aeromancy, right?
Freddy still has Burner, Scald, Muzzle in his deck. There's all sorts of big golds, particularly Burner has the Skirm. Maybe he just has to try and find it here. Finds the Burner. Finds the Burner. So that's really, really important. He took the risk to keep the Skirm in hand. Said there's a chance. And will he find the other Skirm? He finds the other Skirm too. And the Muzzle!
There it is. Oh, that is a big one.
Finds everything right at the last minute.
Not bad.
And this was Freddy just min-maxing his hand there. He could have mulliganed the Skirm and just played it safe. But he says he needs as many points as possible. And it worked out for him very well here. Here comes the Milva for Alessio as well. 2 more movement cards in hand. So he's going to want to return the Milva to the deck. Junod looking dodgy, that's for sure. As is, This is the best muzzle you're going to get as well for Freddy. So Freddy's hand is not looking hot. And this is the big difference with getting that gourd last say.
The gourd will be going through. And for some reason, my mouse has disappeared. I don't know. What's the situation of the gourd? Is it already buffed to the max? It should be.
It's only on 8 buffs at the moment.
Only on 8? Okay, wow. There you go.
Boost by 8, yeah. So it's going to be a 13-point gourd. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely good for Alessio to have here a good amount of points, and the 6-point muscle is definitely not great for Freddy, nor is the 6-point Unod, but it's still points.
It's also better than any of the other things he could have had in hand, apart from potentially a Primal Savagery could have played for 8 on Milva. So Maddock.
All right, there is the muscle.
It's not exactly the most powerful
Fair
round
point.
3 from either of these guys, but they've played it both
No.
so interestingly well, like with the bleeds and all those sorts of things. It's really been a quality game of Gwent.
It definitely has. Some games really, really value round 1, and this is one of those games, and a lot comes down to it. So let's see if everything ended up working out. I think in Alessio's favor here, being the person who did win round 1 and secured last say, which is definitely what both of these players were fighting for. So let's see here. There comes the Milva. You not enough of a target for Milva to hit it down there.
Milva should not be returning the Junod. You actually lose those 2 points, right? So you should just be damaging something different here for Alessio. See if he just taking his time. And it's going to be Hammond versus Gord. The Hammond and Junod just didn't quite come through for Freddy here in the end. But again, these cards really aimed at sort of this Northern Realms, beating Northern Realms a lot of the time. Like your Junod's going to be really important against NR for dealing with something like a Carabalista maybe. But you can see they're just not the perfect cards in this situation. And Alessio does end up going for the Skirm instead of the Junod. And it's Hammond versus Gord.
It's going to be very, very tight.
There's the bleed as well. Let's not forget about the bleed.
One bleed.
And here we go. It's
It's
a
a
tie.
There we go.
Oh my goodness. What a game of Gwent that was. The difference...
That was really amazing. Go for it.
Mate, you know, this is a Neuromancy, he's the bottom card, Cceely. The Gord didn't play for the maximum amount of points.
It was, yeah.
That's so...
I feel like every time I put in a scoia'tel, it's at the bottom. I don't know what it is with an Neuromancy on scoia'tel. It just doesn't work out for some reason. I feel like Alessio or Ultraman is also cursed in this regard. I just got that confirmed.
Cool.
So no tie. Ties are not replayed. We're moving on to the next one. Oh.
So does this count as...
Not.
Have you still got the Discord stream from me? Is it that, if you still got that
Yeah.
part? So I'm assuming the situation we're at then in this series is we're actually at 1-1 in the series, right? So this is just a decider. Is that correct?
Yes. That should be the case. Let me check.
Interestingly enough, Freddy is on blue coin, which I'm not sure that's correct. Shouldn't Freddy be on the other coin? Because Freddy was on blue coin last game, so there might be a bit of an issue here. Cceely might just need to flag it up. I'm not 100% sure how it works.
Right.
Sorry, I just can't check the Discord with the OBS situation. But yeah, Freddy was on blue coin in the last game, right? So...
Yes.
Seems a bit weird that he would be on blue coin again.
Yep. Seems like there something is going on.
So we'll work it out. In this matchup, this Angoulême is going to be hitting Siege. Unless there is a Megascope in the deck of Ultraman to mess up the Angoulême, and there isn't. So Angoulême is a Siege here, which of course, as Nilfgaard, you are going to be able to trigger that with things like assassination, not assassination, coup de grace, informants, remedies, all those kinds of things.
All right. It shouldn't be 2 blue coins, but they will play anyway.
Okay.
It's a bug. All right. So we know that now. Okay.
So they're just going to continue anyway? They both say it's fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems that is the case. All right. Nice Calavite securing Freddy's future draws, while Alessio, on the other hand, is going to go ahead and answer to this. But yeah, it seems that the Angoulême in NR has been very trendy recently. I think that's a very fun card to include, especially when Nilfgaard can just go ahead and copy the siege engines that NG then plays to play their own siege. That's just really fun. And so rude. Just Nilfgaard things, really.
Angoulême just has like her days where she just comes back randomly into the tournament scene. It's like last time Freddy was playing, I know that Angoulême was like something he was throwing around a lot, and we've kind of not heard about her for a long time. And then Cam's played her at Masters, and then she's kind of forgotten about, and now a few months later, she's just always returns.
Exactly. She does have her place in tournament, and apparently on ladder 2, because I was playing yesterday. I was playing some Stockpile, and I got shreked by Angoulême Nilfgaard. That was sad.
No. For Alessio being on this coin, he's done really well to draw 2 Siege Masters to apply quite a bit of pressure. And this is going to be the concern for Freddy, and why he would have decided to queue the SK deck going first, where you get like Mask of Ouroboros, you've got Sunset Wanderers, Discard Package. This SK deck's very reactive with cards like Assassination and Locks. So you're definitely... There's definitely potential for you losing round 1 on even, particularly when there's like big tempo like this War Chariot play. Of course, no Vengeance in the Stockpile deck. So that's at least a positive for Freddy, but he's going to need to respect the push here.
Getting rid of a pretty threatening siege engine. That War Chariot can definitely do its thing in a long round, so it's nice to just smoothly take care of that one. There's a muzzle ready to answer something like Radovid, for example. Also, Alessio doing well in drawing that Radovid in round 1, guaranteeing at least a little bit of carryover. Even if the order ability is not going to get used as well. Definitely a nice card to have, as well as your Amphibious Assault.
Yeah, I think Freddy's going to be really just happy if he can manage to get out of this one without losing the round on even. And that's probably just the difference between playing on red and blue. You know, like from his position, it's always a little bit risky that he could lose this on even, whereas if he's on the other side, he could just control the board, play non-committally with threatening reach. Has locks available. Terra Nova's really cool in this deck as well, Cceely, because there's a lot of the time you see Terra Nova that you have to play these cards like Turncoat, Terra Nova Turncoats, like things that give spine, but in this deck there's none of those. Just a muzzle, a fur cart, and Enslave as well. Like whenever you seize a card, you're getting spying on it. So something to look out for there.
Exactly, and this blue coin strategy that Freddy has, just like Speci mentioned, losing on even is a very big risk, which is why Freddy is saying, well, I'm going to try at least to win this round, committing a pretty big card, which is Brothans, but hopefully this Brothans will allow for Freddy to stay in the game. Of course, Alessio, on the other hand, does have a lot of reach in his hand with these bronzes. Like, my favorite thing ever is playing the Carabalista, then waiting for the cooldown to go to order, having a winch in hand, and the reach is just insane that you have for targeted damage, potentially, if you can time it right. Definitely a great card, winch. And just kind of non-committal for Alessio to potentially win round 1 here, as long as he has enough points to keep himself in this round. And Freddy does say, thank you, I'm out of here. Not losing on even is good enough for me from blue coin, so he has to take it here.
It's going to be interesting to look at Freddy's mulligans in round 2 as well. I know he's not used Calvate much, if ever. I don't think he's played this deck. So he decided to go for it round 1. Doesn't want to just give himself too many golds in hand, and interesting also from Alessio to commit the assault, and that's a really nice set of options, being able to put siege on top of your deck so you could try some kind of bleed with siege round 2, alternatively Hensult as well, a really nice option. But you know, you do lose that echo value on the amphibious assault with that play.
But first day siege, of course, is very powerful, especially knowing that Nilfgaard has played Calvite, so Freddy should be having all of his nice golds there. But the nice thing is that Freddy can respond with this Angolim as well, if necessary. Maybe after the siege has been procced from Alessio, because you do want your engines to stick on the board as well, and whoever goes first with the siege in hand does have an advantage. But yeah, not going to happen just yet from Alessio, it seems.
Yeah, no siege in hand from Alessio. Quite surprising. Didn't take the Hensult or the siege. I'm a little bit surprised by that one.
Yeah, maybe something happened there when the envoy was clicked. Because you can nowadays, you can just confirm choice without it actually, if you don't click anything first. If you misclick something, I guess that could potentially happen. It seems definitely a bit off to skip both Hensult and siege there.
Yeah, Alessio winning round 1 does now have the first say in this round 3, and is going to decide if we play into a long round 2. Radovid here coming down for Alessio. Now, what I'm a little bit worried about, Cceely, is that Freddy might like seize this Radovid with his muzzle and then think that he can use the Radovid to get another Enslave lead ability later on. Because again, he's not going to be familiar with these cards, right? So that of course isn't the case because you have to have at least 2 leader charges.
You do.
It does. The card text is pretty clear. The one charge is in red letters, so I reckon he'll work it out. Of course, it still makes sense to muzzle this Radovid, or if he had an assassination, a lock is also going to answer it too. Yeah.
It's a bit slower. It depends on if you want to commit this muzzle or kind of see what Alessio's going to do first. Is there going to be a pass soon enough or not? Then you might want to save that muzzle for something else and not play it while you're on. Until you know that Alessio is also committing something this round.
Caraballista from Alessio, continuing to threaten a push, but not necessarily committing to it. If realistically, if you're looking to push, Radovid wouldn't be your opening play. You'd much rather get something that's actually getting engine value. So Freddy probably not too concerned. Like if you're getting pushed, you'd really expect to see a siege, for example, Cceely, right? In this round too. That can be really dangerous. Yeah,
the first day siege is usually very, very nice. And Freddy will be the one with first day siege potentially in round 3. Which is quite funny, but there will be heat wave, of course, from Alessio that Freddy, on the other hand, doesn't have.
That's a really good point. Freddy's, of course, got his own siege with the Angoulême, so yeah. Wow. And we say that heat wave trades down badly to a scenario anyway, because you get the prologue, is it called? But with Angoulême, you also get the 3 points from Angoulême as well.
Exactly. A little bit of thinning coming down here with a Blight Maker. Still assessing the situation and what is Alessio going to do. Now Alessio has to decide, all right, am I doing a bit of a bleed? Or am I going right to round 3 and hope that I find my Henselt and my Siege that I could have found? I really wonder if that was intentional or not, because if it was intentional, I'd love to know the reasoning behind. Could be interesting line of play that we haven't thought about as well.
Yeah, it's a big moment in this game. With Alessio being at 7 cards, he's still able to pass and draw 3 cards, and both players will be at 10. So he's not going to lose card advantage here if he was to take the pass, despite having less cards than Freddy. But he has now clicked the order, which means he's of course going to be pushing, playing an extra card. So it's a pretty big decision here from Alessio. Gives himself a crew pocket for the Foltest Pride. Not an optimal use of the leader there. And for Freddy as well, as his Enslave leader, to try and resist the bleed maybe, you're going to be taking your opponent's engine and using it for your own. And Enslave just so fantastic against Northern Realms. That's really why he's gone for Enslave over any other Nilfgaard leader ability, particularly against Siege type decks. Like Imposter's really good against Alumni with cards like Gerhardt, but yeah, against Siege you can see just how powerful this Enslave 5 is going to be on something like Foltest Pride in particular.
Yeah, it's definitely not bad at all. Having access to Muzzle, Invo, and Enslave, there's a lot of things to answer, a lot of these engines. And also Alessio kind of leaving this Pride here. Usually you see it in combination with Henselt for kind of a point finisher, usually in round 3. That you can hold on to, or even a long round. So this is definitely an interesting thing. Also just kind of leaving it there and just saving the leader charges for some other siege engines later, perhaps when the siege is going to come down. So yeah, this is just a really nice leader for Freddy to be able to take.
Just making sure I've got everything working with the alert box. So if you guys are donating to the charity, it should come up on the screen. Please do let me know if you have any troubles with that, just so I can make sure everything is working as it should be. Please do let us know. So Freddybabes with the leader charge going through, and then the muzzle stealing it straight back. Freddy only 2 points behind now. There is a couple of... Well, there's one engine on the board still unlocked with the Caraballista having that armor. He is going to want to try and answer that. Can also begin trying to develop his own engines with... Well, the Joachim actually comes through here onto the Pella, which is a little bit surprising. Not great, that. Not great.
Not what you want to see, but still ahead. Still ahead. Not the end of the world. The doomed amphibious assault is being committed as well. Alessio is kind of sensing that, well, I haven't seen that many high provision cards here. Maybe I can squeeze out something more. Let's see if he's able to. Definitely a kind of big commitment there. Going for, yeah. I love that Freddy's just eliminating kind of the siege engines here as well. The Caraballista's the only one still going strong. And also the invocation does enable that potential siege to be triggered from hand. Even you don't have to rely on copies or Duchess's informants. You can just play the Angleem, then drop your own invocated siege engine there. But of course, there is the heat wave from Alessio that would stop Freddy in his tracks. But I like that invocation. It actually works. Usually you don't want to invocate a bronze, but this is not bad.
Just doing a quick test for the donation thing. We're having some troubles with it. So hopefully we can get it sorted. The test is working. I'll just have to, after this series, just double check everything. Hopefully it starts working though. It should be. Should work, but yeah, not actually. Obviously you can do tests, but you can't actually like test it in practice off stream. So hopefully we can just make sure that's working out. But it's a 6-point game at the moment in round 2.
All right, let's see. Here comes the coup onto the Joachim, pulling out something else from the deck. Now, what will that something be? Oh yeah, we know. That got invocated. So here it is.
See, I'm wondering if this decision from Alessio in round 1 was really premeditated and it was actually intentional. Because he's now got 8 cards left in the deck. He knows that Freddybabes played Calvate, so he's going to have a handful of golds. He accepts he loses the round and is just making these really, really efficient trades. This is maybe the big downside of Freddy playing the Calvate in round 1. He's opened himself up potentially to this bleed. So Freddy might have card advantage in round 3, but the card quality might just favor Alessio.
It might be pretty calculated, but the heat wave coming down there, it is a pretty big thing because now Alessio's kind of opened up the Angleem siege play for Freddy as well, which is a little bit scary potentially if Freddy does make it out of this round, which I mean he should. I believe. But yeah, it's an interesting way for Alessio to play this game. Definitely different from what you usually see with Stockpile. And yeah, just going for it really here. Making sure that he gets the points squeezed out. Not amazing bombardments left, considering there's only 2 siege engines left on Alessio's board. But the cooldown for the Caraballista will trigger one more time, thanks to those, at least. So there's still a couple of points waiting to be played, and Freddy really has to now consider what he's playing. Is he going to try to save the Angleem? Is he going to play out the Angleem siege now and use the experimental remedy to get something from graveyard, or are you going to play something like Artaud here and Muzzle to hopefully save that siege for last day? Because now you know, or round 3, now you know there's no heat wave, so that could definitely be something for Freddy to consider.
Yeah, the Terra Nova just getting him ahead, meaning that Alessio's not able to pass, and Freddy now with this remedy can also just get himself ahead with a Caraballista in the graveyard, for example. It's also the option of a back row envoy if he really wanted to then, but he knows the order of his deck, so that's not going to be really too efficient here. Does need to be careful that he can still trigger his siege as well, right? He still has remedy, informant in the deck. There's also a Diplo which could find a siege engine, but pretty much guaranteed to be able to still trigger his siege, so long as he doesn't play the Angleem. But
yeah, the question is, will this muzzle be enough to take it? Will Alessio go ahead here and play the last bombardment to get another good thing from Freddy? We'll see. But here comes the informant in the meantime, and is perfectly getting ahead. And now Alessio is going to make a really good trade here. while he does go ahead and play out this bombardment. Muzzle or Angleam, Freddy has to choose which one is more important later.
Yeah, so Alessio did a really good job of trading for card quality right towards the end of the round. However, Freddy is still in a position where he is a card up, has siege plus 3 points as well. Let's not forget he's got 3 extra points on his siege. But Alessio also does get the siege down first, so long as he draws it, because it's not guaranteed. There's 8 cards left, and well, there it is. Look at that.
Well,
there's also a Hensel available for Alessio.
Let's see if the Hensel can be found. That one is quite big still with the cooldowns. Of course, all the leader charges have been spent, but it's still a fair amount of points. You have to make sure you draw it. Alessio has to be a little bit careful with the draws here because there are some specials in there, and you also want to make sure that you can actually proc your siege chapters. And you might not do that if you end up drawing like a oil here or a winch. Stuck with one of those. Risky mulligans for sure.
Society probably needs it, and that's not a siege. That's not what you want. Does he want that? No, he doesn't. And this is a decision from, and it's in fact Freddy with the first place siege, of course. My mistake.
Yes.
Which means that Freddy's in an even better position, the extra card. And now with Alessio deciding that he's in a bit of a sticky situation, of course, Calvate having been played, he can pretty much work out exactly what Freddy's got left. And decides he just needs to min-max the hand, something we saw Freddy do in the last game to get the tie.
Yep, sometimes you gotta risk it for the biscuit, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but it is a card game after all. Anything can happen, and today the cards were definitely on Freddy's side, as we can see here, being able to say that Angleam and being able to proc it guaranteed. You do have the Remedy as well as the Duchess's Informant. Everything you want to have those points from Siege, while Alessio, the actual Siege player, is not able to do that because of that winch that ended up in his hand. Very unlucky, and Henselt hiding at the bottom of the deck, unfortunately.
Freddy with 3 cards to play can decide to answer the engine, of course. Play an Informant in the back row as well. Now he's got that double Trebuchet. Battering Ram comes out. He has also, of course, got more Siege Engines from this Remedy as well. So it is going to be able to complete the second chapter of his scenario. For Alessio, the winch is just not going to quite do it. And there we go. The forfeit comes through from Alessio, and Freddybabes, I'm assuming, Freddybabes wins the series. What a series it was. 2 legends of the game. Hello everyone, welcome back. Yeah, apparently the series is still on. I think everyone's a little bit confused as to what happened. But here we go.
It's fine.
Basically, the first draw is counting as a nil nil. So then Freddy gets his win. This is so weird.
Yep. But we're going for it. So yeah, the score is 1-0 right now for Freddy. And now let's see, who do we have? Okay, so after Freddy going on blue for 2 coins, now we have Alessio on blue coin with scoia'tel. So Freddy responding with Onslaught. Very similar to what we saw, except the coins were flipped. So let's see how it looks this time around. And let's hope we don't get another tie for this one. Saskia is out, hoping to get a little bit of thinning, engine value, points for Alessio in round 1. Freddy, on the other hand, is going to respond. He's able to control the board a little bit, but also has to put points on his own on the board if he does intend on contending the Saskia here.
It's a really weird situation we're in here, because usually in a tournament situation, if you manage to beat one deck, you know, you're gonna win the series. But for Freddy here, he's got a lineup which really is aimed at beating Northern Realms. He has beaten Northern Realms once, but Alessio, having not won a single game, is able to choose which deck he plays with. So Freddy's gonna maybe feel a little bit hard done by. Like, if his lineup is working properly, he would be getting two wins. Whereas if he manages to lose with this, despite not losing to NR, it's just going to be a 1-1 tie. Having said that, we did see the previous game, this ended up as a draw, and the coin was reversed, where Saskia was applying a lot of pressure from red coin, whereas here, Saskia on blue coin is not quite the same.
Not quite the same. And yeah, good draw here also from Freddy coming down with finding that terror in round 1 right from that Scald. Definitely not bad for Freddy to look at. He can put a lot of armor on it and hopefully use it to remove potentially something tall. A lot of tall removal, as we know from Freddy. Alessio's units, of course, they don't go too tall, but as we saw in the previous series, both players were competing for last say because Alessio does have that gourd. This time around, though, he has also located his Aneromancy, which was missing the last time, so maybe this gourd will get to its max value, but who will have last say? And is Freddy able to potentially morph for a Heat Wave or even terror it? Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, for Freddy, just developing some carryover. And then in round 2, he's going to have this Sunset Wanderers. He's going to have the Mushy Truffle. Might be able to force a long round, but of course, Alessio, like a lot of the times you play the Sasuke and you've not got much left for round 3. Does have this Feign Death, though, still remaining. Of course, we've seen these removal cards don't play for that many points. So I'm maybe a little bit surprised to see such a big committal round 1 from Alessio on Blue Coin here. A lot of his engines going down. He's not going to have a whole lot of points there for the later rounds. Of course, does have Feign Death, but the movement package with Sasuke is significantly better than Feign Death. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. These are the points, the big points of Alessio's deck, and they are coming down early, looking to then control the board later. And I guess it is nice because Freddy does have a lot of reactive cards, a lot of removal. So if you can kind of play your engines now, when some of them will stick and not get removed by Freddy, maybe this is the turn to do it. But Sasuke on Blue Coin is definitely quite a big commitment, but Alessio is just really saying he needs that last say. I think that's why we're seeing such a big commitment here.
Yeah, another movement engine coming down from Alessio, and Freddy looks very much like he's geared up just to take the pass here. Fisher King doing the work as well, similar to Maxi really. Does cost you a provision more, but the difference is Maxi going to bottom deck a card and then shuffle the rest. Fisher King just giving you a card on top. So we're going to see exactly what card Freddy chose to put on top of his deck. And it's a massive overcommitment here from Alessio in round 1. Look at that. If this went on for a long round, like Alessio would have won by 100 points, Cceely. And that's 100 points that you aren't going to have for round 3.
That's true. And now what Alessio does have left is the Maddock, the Bombs, the Milva. A lot of reactive stuff, trying to maybe eat at Freddy's points a little bit. You don't want to lose your last say. As we know, what Alessio's looking for here is just pumping up the gourd really, really tall. I mean, this is kind of a nice hand because you do have that Feign Death this time around. Freddy so far hasn't found the Heat Wave in the deck yet. So if you push with the scenario that might be able to go through, then you can play your Simlast, put carryover on the only unit in your hand, which is gourd right now. That's a lot of carryover, but you have to be able to keep your last say. And the Heat Wave, once again, is used here by Freddy to compete with that Feign Death.
Yeah, and this is what's so great about the Sunset Wanderers and the Mushy Truffle in this deck. Freddy's going to be able to use Mushy Truffle in round 2, have that carryover available for round 3, or click it to just get ahead in round 2 and try and get card advantage, therefore being able to tool punish the gourd. And the Sunset Wanderers as well is just this sort of ever-looming presence here. If Alessio pushes into round 2, he's then going to have to compete against the points that the Sunset Wanderers has. And then if he doesn't push far enough into round 2, Sunset Wanderers is going to be available for Freddy in round 3, offering him more points, you know, to make that round 3 just tilt in his favor.
Yeah, it's a definitely interesting situation that we have here from both players. Again, Alessio finding the exact same things from Simlast as he did last time.
In the same order.
Double
as well.
Commando, though, it's nice. Yeah.
Deja vu.
Double Commando is good.
Also, this officer, like, even though it only plays for 4 points, or is it Saboteur it's called? Yeah, the Varied Saboteur, buffing up Simlast to 3 points does make this Primal Savagery that Freddy has a little bit more awkward to deal with, for sure.
Yep, definitely not bad. Let's see how Freddy is responding. Ideally, he gets the max points on the Sunset Wonder, gets ahead with it at some point as well. If you can get ahead soon enough, then you're very happy. And there comes the Leader Charge as well as the Primal Savagery. Bit committal, but if Alessio continues playing here, it's going to be a little bit, yeah. Freddy can definitely catch up with the points soon because of that Wonder, and then Alessio might lose the last save, which is very valuable here. Very valuable.
Yeah, I like this decision from Freddy to commit the Leader Charge, and again, you just see the combo of the Primal Savagery, just being a bit of removal plus points. When you combine that with a Leader Charge, like you can it's like a rebuke almost, right, with a 6-point body. Of course, it costs you a leader charge, but it's a really nice way of using some removal for just 4 provisions as well. You can't really go wrong. 8 points for 4 provisions plus 2 removal is pretty insane. It combos so well with the leader. Of course, you also often are going to damage a card in that act, giving your pirates and ships in your hand some armor. And there comes Burner Bran, finding the Morkvarg, finding the Skirm. Does mean that if you discard both the Mork and the Skirm, the Scald is going to be left in hand looking a little bit awkward.
Yeah, but the tempo is nice here because Freddy has just gotten ahead and has the Sunset Wanderers waiting there. It's looking a little bit rough for Alessio in terms of keeping the last save for the board. We know there's a Morkvarg in Freddy's deck, and that one's going to wipe away. So Alessio is really going to have to push it here, I think, to be able to keep his card.
Yeah, and this round 2 really is where the non-devotion version of Onslaught shines. As I mentioned, this card Sunset Wanderers, you can just see how much pressure it's going to apply in round 2 if Freddy needs it, and if he can hold on to its points. And the Truffle as well, just those extra points for round 3. Like, this is what you get Muzzle as well, which is like another nice benefit. Of course, like you've got the King Brand Devotion version, which is another option. But this really, I think, in this round 2 is exactly why the non-devotion one really shines a lot of the time.
Yeah. Alessio, of course, hasn't gotten the Maddock out just yet either. So that's a little bit of extra once it finally a bomb is going to be played. Not much you can pull here from an Aeromancy. That would be like a big play in terms of point swing. It's going to be really interesting to see how Alessio can keep up here.
You can kiss my tail goodbye.
There does come the Sunset Wanderers, yeah. There's still no Truffle being played by Freddy though, Cceely, which is a little surprising.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yes, the Truffle still sitting there. Definitely something that Freddy does want to commit, but being able to play really non-committally and get ahead there with the Hafrua, then getting the bonded value from the Truffle, there's like, Alessio really can't pass, I don't think. Passing there is just a little bit, I feel like you have to fight for that last day. If you pass, it's really, Gourd is kind of the only point you have left now, except for Maddock and Millman Bombs. So not really an option for Alessio to pass there, which is why Freddy could afford to wait.
Apologies, Cceely. I'm just trying to get this alert box a little bit sorted out, but just this round
no
2
worries.
looking like it is definitely going in Freddy's favor. And this is a spooky position for Alessio to be in, as we say, like with this whole Morkvarg onto Gord thing, especially with some of the hand buff going onto it. So Alessio's really needing to fight back and try and get ahead here. But the big problem is Freddy's deck is just not giving any removal value to these bombs and these rock barrages, and Alessio's deck is full of it. And this round 1 Saskia play was just too committal, I think. He would have probably been better off going for the Feign Death maybe in round 1 and trying to win that way. It's definitely an awkward position to be in, though.
Yeah, the muzzle here is just really nice from Freddy. Like, Maddock had been out for 1 turn only, so Freddy is well aware that Alessio literally has every single bomb left. So you know that muzzle is going to get good value, which is why Freddy could take it. Alessio, on the other hand, does play this Witcher, and if it isn't dealt with, it definitely can still cause a lot of trouble, as Freddy has his units kind of spread out here as well. So Freddy can decide to deal with it or just go ahead, establish a little bit of carryover here with the Hafrua, and yeah, perfect range there with the Terror of the Seas. For Freddy, it's worth taking it because there aren't that many targets for it in this matchup, so it makes a lot of sense to just go for it. And Alessio's bombs here, the movement bombs are not looking great. Not optimal.
Yeah, Milva now looking a little bit awkward as well, still on the board. Of course, you can use a leader charge onto the Maddock, and then you could kill it, and then you're going to be getting it back with the bombs. But for the moment, there we go. Decides to move the Terror of the Seas, then you can get the damage on the making a bomb. I'm just going to have to leave the donation stuff for the moment. Let's watch the game, and I can sort it out afterwards. I just feel bad, because it should be up, but yeah. There comes the Truffle. Finally! Better late than never, Cceely.
Exactly, and nicely playing around that last bomb as well in Freddy's hand, knowing, Alessio's hand, knowing that still exists. and all the movement charges have been spent. So really, I think what Alessio is gonna have to do. All right.
He quits.
Well, he says, all right, I'm not getting that card back. He had all of his basically eggs in the gourd basket, and the gourd basket wasn't working out here, unfortunately, as he did